Hi, friends. I'm Matthew Wickman. I hold the University Professorship of English at Brigham Young University, and I'm also a proud and grateful member of the SSCS. And I'm joined today by Mary Frohlich, who's Professor Emerita at the Catholic Theological Union. She's a former president of the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality, and she's an insightful and influential scholar of Christian spirituality, and she's also a good friend. So, Mary, it's great to have you on here. Great to talk with you today. I've got 5 questions about your work as a scholar and teacher of Christian spirituality, and about your experience with the SSCS and about where you see the field going. So I'll start here. Let's begin with your path to getting into the SSCS, which you became president of. What led you to the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality and or its precursor in the field?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and for doing this. Um, well, I was in 1990. I got my PhD, and I was an emerging scholar at that point, and that was just about exactly when the people were those who the real founders of the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality were meeting and um, deciding that this was a wonderful enterprise. So I was not part of that really original group, but as soon as they showed up at the AAR and started having meetings there, I joined in. I saw it right away because that was my field, Christian spirituality. So I came in near the beginning, but not right at the beginning.
Okay. Can I ask you then? So you're not at the beginning, but you published an essay in the very first issue of the journal Spiritus, which is the flagship journal for the society. A very influential essay, right? It was titled "Spiritual Discipline: Discipline of Spirituality: Revisiting Questions of Definition and Method." And it's been a very impactful essay on me and many people. I've taught it, I've published and cited it, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the recent issue of Spiritus, volume 24, right? So more than 20 years later, published an essay titled "The New Animism,"
Mhm.
which seems like an essay very different and very distant even in topic and range. Would you, in publishing that very first essay in Spiritus, have been surprised to know, if you could have known, that you would publish an essay 20 years later as titled "The New Animism"?
Well, yes, I mean that is. I guess people should hope that they would be surprised by what they would do in 20 or 30 years. But anyway, that it wouldn't just be the same thing over and over. Um, I think I would say that I was always drawn to the natural world as a spirit, as part of my own spirituality, but I didn't think of it as part of my academic understanding of spirituality, and that took time for me to kind of claim that, and really, which is in continuity with the claims of that essay that you're referring to, a spiritual discipline, discipline of spirituality, which says that we begin from our own immersion in spirituality, and that really is our um, point of our stance, where we can understand spirituality. And so yeah, it would have surprised me, but on the other hand, it was certainly in continuity with, I would say, my own personal spirituality and my own personal uh, journey.
Okay. Um, Here's the third question for you, and it's kind of on the topic of the journey that you've made. Um, you've been very prolific since you retired from full-time academic teaching. Published a couple of books. One of them, and I love them both, by the way. One of them is titled "Breathe into Wholeness" and subtitled "Catholicity and Life in the Spirit," and the other is "The Heart at the Heart of the World," and it's subtitled "Revisioning the Sacred Heart for the Echozoic Era." Now, both are great books. Let me ask you about the more recent of the two, The Heart at the Heart of the World, which is about our present day environmental and ecological crisis and the precarity of our present day existence. That book advances some very bold, almost edgy claims, right? It involves evolutionary biology. It gets into what you call the wild and queer kingdom of God. Was that book harder to write for the boldness of its arguments or for the accessibility of its style? Because it's a very readable book, I think.
Yeah, well, both of those required evolution. And also, this book was written after I retired from full-time um, academic position, and I felt liberated from some of the expectations of the academic world. I still participate in the academic world. It's not that I repudiate it, but I felt liberated from kind of having to conform to some of its expectations. And so, I really did go to the edges. I really, and as you say, the challenges of that, uh, trying to reflect on, incorporate a really, really, really broad range of sources, some of which are pretty far out there, um, or at least they're far out there from the perspective of a more classical kind of Christian spirituality. Um, but I just tried to be open to pretty much everything, and certainly people have said that some people have felt like it went too far, I guess you could say, but in a way that was part of the point is to open as wide as possible to for the sake of the crisis that the world is in, that we have to go beyond our narrower uh, perspective. In regard to the accessibility part, I really wanted to write for a broader audience, and that is not easy. For once one has gained the skills of writing academically, it's hard to shift to let go of some of that. And the truth is that some people have felt, still say that it's not accessible enough. Probably the reality is that if a person doesn't have any background in theology or spirituality, it's still kind of academic. But for people, but it is for the audience of people who, um, read in the field of spirituality, even if that's not their own field. That was kind of where I was aiming.
Okay. Well, I think I mean, it's beautifully written book. It's a great book and it's very thoughtful. So,
Thank you.
the accomplishment. Thank you,
It's
Mary.
my favorite book of
Yeah.
mine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yours. Yeah. Okay. Right. Um, it's a great book. Here's the fourth question I have for you, right? So you've done some really impactful work in the field of Christian spirituality. I'm interested in what excites you about the field in areas where you've not written. Like, do you come across work in the field that you find really exciting or interesting, that you admire, even though you've not undertaken work in that field?
Well, I mean, there's so much out there, there's so much to admire, I guess you could say that. But I'm not, that doesn't necessarily mean I would want to write in all of those fields. When I was thinking about this question, it really, I thought about it, well, maybe the question is, what would I do if I had 30 more years, which I don't. So, and I think the answer to that question would be that I think there's some really exciting work being done and potential work to be done in the whole area of what is going on with like visions and um, spirits, and those topics that, especially maybe in a slightly earlier time, I mean, including when I was younger in the field, they maybe were not such respectable topics in a way. But there's some really remarkable work being done now in with neuropsychology and evolutionary biology and um, well, even sociology. I mean, so many of the humanities that are looking at these topics, and um, putting that into dialogue with the more classical and theological treatments, I find absolutely fascinating. And I have played around with doing that, but I realize that I'm playing around because one would have to do that foundational work in those other fields, which would take a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, it is a fascinating field, though, isn't it? The interest in spirits, in connection with the life beyond, whatever that is, the world beyond this one, or the world that's part of this one, but we don't always perceive it. There's a lot of great work in that area. So I'm with you. It's fascinating. I like reading it. I'm not working that myself. I enjoy reading it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the question is, how does God break into people's
There
lives?
you go. Yeah.
And obviously, when God breaks in a particular psychological, sociological context, and but on the other hand, there's also something from that depth. So yeah, how does that work? How and how do we foster that in a responsible and helpful way?
There you go. Good. Well said. Thank you. Here's my fifth and final question for you. You had to do a lot of reading in evolutionary biology and writing the heart of the world. And I'm wondering what you've read there that might give you perspective either onto how the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality has evolved over the years, or what it may need to do to evolve to remain vital into the future.
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind is the biological concept of the niche, that a species thrives if it finds a niche within an ecosystem where it is able to receive the nourishment that it needs, but also to contribute to the ecosystem. And that niche can be small. I mean, that is, one doesn't have to dominate or be the most powerful species, but nonetheless, that it is a place where that species can thrive. And so I sort of see the importance for the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality of being aware of our own niche and paying attention to that. Niches can evolve. I mean, that is, over time, the ecosystem evolves, and you have to move with it at the same time, sticking with what enables you to thrive. Um, but that if you lose that niche, then, or if you sort of abandon it, then you've got a problem. The other concept that I have thought about is that, in the world of species, there are like families of species, like, all the canid species, for example, that are different but related. And I think we are a part of the contemplative studies family of species, you might say. And it seems that the contemplative studies movement has caught on in a bigger way. I mean, there are some really major universities that have put, money and major professorships into contemplative studies. And that, I think, meanwhile, we in Christian spirituality are not feeling as much success in that sense. I mean, we continue to be largely, as far as academic positions, largely in, the seminaries and the religious schools, and even not even all of them. But that we can participate with this larger family of, we have our place within this larger family of species, so to speak, of the contemplative studies movement. And yet we need to be aware that we do have our own niche. And specifically, I think the two things that that our name identifies as our niche. One is Christian, and at some future point, there could be a movement to say, oh no, let's just let go of that because we want to be, part of a bigger movement. And I think that would probably be a mistake. This is our particular niche. And the other is study, that this is about the study of Christian spirituality. It's not just about being interested in Christian spirituality, or even, and that, that it was, a couple of years ago, there was and actually a decision was made to identify our society as also for practitioners. And at that time, I remember that the older members of the society were less enthused about that than the younger members. And I am one of the older members at this point, and I wasn't opposed to it, but I wasn't enthused about it. But and I think it's because of the sense that the niche is study. I mean, it's about scholarship. It is about the academic. But what I also realize is that the younger members are operating in a different academic ecosystem than I was, 30 years ago. And so it probably is the case that they discerned that this was the right direction to go. But it is, I think we have to hold on to those two things, that, or that's my opinion at this point, that our niche is the Christian and the study. Uh, and that yes, we have to evolve, and that can mean changes, and who knows? I mean, it could mean big changes, but that we have to pay attention to that. What is our niche?
Great. Well said, Mary. And it's a delight talking with you. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a delight talking with you. Thank you.